I'm Kent, and you're watching Weekend Adventure Rides. This week, we're rebuilding motorcycle wheels. So let's get started. We're gonna tear this thing down. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is get these brake rotors off. And we can just pull that off, and that's gonna go right in the dumpster. So now we'll take off our rear sprocket. That's a lightweight aluminum sprocket. We will be replacing this as well, so this is gonna go in the dumpster. Now, time to get rid of this tire. What we need to do is pull this valve core out, and then we're gonna pull the retaining nut off the valve stem. Okay, now I've got some tire spoons. We're gonna get the bead broke on this thing. So these are the Motion Pro Bead Pro. They're the steel ones, not the aluminum ones. They're a little longer bite on them. We can use these, break that bead down. So we'll get this first one done here, pull this out. Okay, so we got a bite on here. I'm gonna take my other tire spoon, get another bite, get this up over the edge of the wheel. Okay, so now that we have a bite taken out of this tire, we've got it pulled up just a bit. We're gonna use this Tusk bead tool. It helps keep the edge of the tire outside of the wheel as you're working around. It works pretty well. Sink it down in there, hook it around one of the spokes. So we're gonna keep working around and taking small bites. It's important that you work kind of slowly, not try to rush this around and cause damage to things by rushing it. All right, so we're halfway there. The other side's not broken. There we go. Now I'm gonna take this spoon under here and we're gonna pull the rim out. All right, so once you work the edge out like this, you can kind of just pull it out. There we go. There's the old tube and tire. I'm actually gonna keep this tire. It's in good shape, really. I may end up using that later on. Okay, now we're gonna get rid of these wheel bearings. Take a screwdriver, we'll get the seals out. All right, and I have a bearing puller, which will make this a lot easier. So it's important with this one that you don't damage the sleeve. So we'll find the edge. Now we're gonna tighten up our bearing puller. So this basically expands it so it holds onto the edges. And we're up right against the edge of the bearing there. So I'm gonna tighten this up just a little bit, and you wanna be pulling straight out on that. So we've got a good grip on it there. So grab a hold of it with our drive hammer here, or slide hammer. We're gonna go nice and easy, try to pull this out of here. So with some added heat there, I was able to pull that out with the slide hammer. We have the old bearing. That's gonna go in the trash. So we got the wheel spacer out. I ended up using the blind bearing puller on that instead of screwdrivers, but I mean, you can try screwdrivers first. The blind bearing puller worked great. Now we've got this retaining nut here that holds the actual bearing in, and it needs a special tool. It's got this little 4-prong adapter to just a hex. You do need this to get this part off. I wouldn't try to hammer it out of there. We got it mostly twisted out here. We'll just twist that the rest of the way off. I'm gonna heat up the aluminum around this bearing, and hopefully that frees it up enough that we can hammer it out of there without causing any damage. With a little heat and a hammer, I was able to use the socket, drive out the little spacer in there, and the bearing. All right, onto the fun stuff now. Remove all of our spokes. I've got this 6.0 spoke wrench. We're just gonna start trying to twist these things off. If they don't twist off, that's fine. We're gonna put new ones on. Not too concerned about breaking them. When you're removing them, order's not really important. Okay, so we've got all of our spoke nipples off. The wheel is now free. Before I take this apart, just gonna double check. On this side, the counterclockwise spokes are on top. So we'll pull out the hub. We're gonna flip it over. On this side, the clockwise spokes are on top. So I'm gonna take a picture of that. That way we can double check and we can pull our hub out. We're actually gonna clean this up. I'm gonna take it over to the parts washer. By that I mean my kitchen sink. Then I'm gonna take some wet dry sandpaper and rub this down. Just get a few of the blemishes out. I'm not really too worried about making it shiny or anything. So just get all the dirt off, and then it's a nice surface for our new spokes to go on. We'll do the same thing with this hub. I'm gonna push all of the spokes out. All right, so we've got these cleaned up, the hub, the wheel, and I checked that the wheel is flat, sitting perfectly level, so we don't need to adjust that at all. Okay, when we're assembling this, we're going to consult the pictures that we took. If you look at the hub, the spokes on the bottom are closer to the hub than the spokes on the top here. So these ones on the top are actually going to be shorter than these ones on the bottom. All right, and we know from the picture that the counterclockwise spokes that are going this way are on the top, the clockwise spokes are on the bottom. So we're gonna put all the clockwise spokes in first. So those are all in. Now we're gonna put our counterclockwise ones on top. All right, that looks pretty good. Take a double check on our picture, and yep, everything looks good. So now I'm gonna line up our wheel, and with this part, you can see how these little indentations where the nipples go, they're pointed different directions. You can tell the ones that are pointed this way are the ones that attach to this top one. So you just line up where it kind of looks like they're supposed to go. We're gonna grab some of our nipples here and we're gonna start loosely fitting this wheel on. Now we don't wanna get these tight yet, and I'm just gonna get the first few threads on each one of these. All right, so we got those started. I'm gonna flip this over. So the spokes that are going counterclockwise are on the bottom. We'll put those in first. Okay, bottom spokes, now our top spokes. All right, so I've got all the threads started, and we've got our 4 left over here. Okay, before I get this thing balanced, what we're gonna do is work around the wheel and tighten up all of these nipples here. I like to do that at the top, that way the weight of the hub pulls the nipple into place. So I started here where this valve stem goes in, and I'm just gonna work around and go and tighten these all up. So there's just a couple threads left on each. They're gonna be finger tight. Let's take care of these bearings. There's this little spacer in there. This is what the axle goes through. There's a little marker on here, an arrow, and it says LH, and there's an arrow to the left-hand side, so we'll drop that in there first. I've got some sockets that I match the outside of the race. We're gonna use those to drive them home. All right, so I've got the bearings in a bag of ice here. Get those cooled down. You could use dry ice. I don't have any available to me right this second. Oh, it's gotta be close. We're gonna give it a shot here. There we go. We're gonna work over and do the other side. Let's drop this new bearing in there. Just like the other side, this one's not side specific. It is a sealed bearing, so it can go in either way. Okay, so the bearings are in, so we're gonna finish up with the spokes and get this wheel all trued up. I have this rod that is basically an axle that rides through the hub. So we'll get that kind of centered on there. It has these little cone-shaped inserts here. So that looks pretty centered right there. Tighten down the cone on this side, and then we'll put our cone on the other side. So that should keep our wheel locked in place. Set our wheel on. Then you could use these collars for the outside. I'm just gonna mate them up to the edge there, and that's gonna keep everything in place. Now we've got our little indicator, and this is going to go initially up to the edge of the wheel on the outside. Before I set this, I'm gonna spin it, kind of figure out where it's gonna touch. I'd have it just grazing the wheel in some places. If it's coming in contact here, that means we need to move the wheel that way. But if it's too far away from the pin here, then we need to pull it back to the pin. So what we're aiming for is to be consistent all the way around the rim. We're seeing here that it's too close. So what we need to do is tighten up the side that's going to pull it away. We're gonna do a couple little half turns here. And now we come over here and you can see it's like 3 millimeters away. So we're gonna tighten up the ones that are going to the this side, and they'll pull the wheel this way. Ideally, we're within about 2 millimeters, and for an off-road bike, that's okay. If it's an on-road bike, from the factory, they're gonna be a little bit tighter tolerances. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. As far as up and down, what we're gonna do now, adjust this to the bottom of the rim. Now this is fairly more important. So you see where it's touching. What we're gonna do, instead of tightening just one side, we're gonna tighten all of them so it pulls it up away from there. Quarter turn on each one of these. I'm gonna do about 5 or so. Okay, we're not touching there anymore. Okay, now we're within 1 millimeter up and down. We'll check our run out again. One spot here that seems to be wanting to come out too much. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now what we're going to do is use that mark that we made earlier here. We're gonna go around and start tightening these. We start here, skip 2, tighten 1. When we skip every 2, we are tightening opposite spokes. So there should be a net neutral outcome here. Now we're here back at the beginning. Now we finished this row. I'm gonna mark that next row. and we'll start on that one. So we'll tighten this one, skip 2, tighten that one. So we want to do about 1/4 to 1/2 a turn. Okay, now we're going to move on to our third one. This will be our last one. Now we're going to go around with our Tusk spoke wrench. And this is in inch-pounds. According to the service manual, the Honda service manual, we want to torque these to between 1.8 and 3.6 foot-pounds. This is in inch-pounds, so it's just a factor of 12. I'm going to do it to 3 foot-pounds or 36 inch-pounds. Start working around again. We're going to do the same thing we did before. We'll start here till we start hearing that glorious click from the torque wrench. All right, so there you have it. We have the wheel all mounted and we got it all trued up. So that's all we have for this week. Don't forget, like and subscribe, follow us along. Next week, we're gonna take on these tires. We're gonna get those mounted up and we're gonna get them balanced, and then we're gonna get them on the motorcycle. All right, we'll see you next time.